It begins with a 911 call at 6:55 p.m. on Monday, January 27th. Letitia told the operator Gannon was supposed to come home from a friend's house an hour ago, and she was unable to locate him. At the time, Gannon's father was out of town on reserve duty. A missing person investigation was opened up, and a community began to search for a little boy.
This was a kid that was very frequent out front, being very, being a kid, very playful, very funny.
Whatever we could do just to show them that we're thinking of them and, they're in our thoughts and prayers.
As the investigation continued, police began to question Letitia's story. They examined phone records, GPS records, home security system records, and a surveillance video from a neighbor's home.
Neighbor Roderick Drayton gave investigators his home surveillance video showing Gannon leaving with his stepmother, then returning without him on the day the child disappeared. He says he searched the video after seeing the stepmother interviewed.
It just didn't seem right the way she was talking.
Okay.
If my child is missing, I'm going to face the camera and talk to you, that you see the pain in my face.
In court, prosecutors spoke about the vast amount of evidence gathered during the investigation.
The last number that I heard was over 107 search warrants in this case. Yes, 107. 107. I think that number is bigger than that number, though, just based on, that was last week sometime that I heard that.
These 107 search warrants uncovered a lot, including blood stains on Gannon's mattress, blood spatter on this electrical socket next to his bed, evidence of blood in the garage and near the bumper of Letitia's Volkswagen. Many of these blood samples were directly linked to Gannon's DNA. All this, enough to arrest Letitia, who was no longer in Colorado where Gannon went missing. Letitia was arrested on March 2nd in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Then, on March 20th, a huge development.
Now to breaking news at 5. It is believed that 11-year-old Gannon Stauch's remains have been found.
Gannon's remains were found not in Colorado, not in South Carolina, but in Florida, 15 miles north of Pensacola, near the Escambia River Bridge in a town called Pace.
Today I filed new formal charges in the case against Letitia Stauch. Those charges are murder in the first degree after deliberation, a Class 1 felony that carries a potential prison sentence of life in prison without parole. In addition to that, I've filed 8 counts of crime of violence for the alleged use of a firearm, a blunt instrument, a knife or other sharp object, and for causing the death of Gannon Stauch.
Letitia Stauch is presumed innocent, and according to the arrest affidavit, she has a story. She told investigators Gannon was abducted by a Hispanic man named Edgardo, who took Gannon at gunpoint after sexually assaulting Letitia inside the family's home. That's a story investigators don't believe, but the question is, will Letitia tell that story to a jury, and will a jury believe it? Or will they deliver the justice Gannon's family is looking for?
All right, let's bring back in the think tank, criminal defense attorney Gerald Griggs, trial attorney Ann Bremner, and criminal defense attorney Michael Sterling. All right, let's begin with Michael. Michael, this is a case that, as we heard, spans 3 different jurisdictions: Colorado, South Carolina, Florida, 107 search warrants. I mean, this is a complicated case, not an easy one. As a former prosecutor, talk about how difficult it is when you have that much evidence and 3 different jurisdictions that you have to corral to try a case.
Yeah, it certainly is extraordinarily difficult because different offices operate differently, have different sort of standard operating procedures that they normally abide by, and different methods and mechanisms of collecting data, evidence, different skills and investigators and investigative techniques. So, it certainly can be difficult. But the good thing is that, normally all of the prosecutors are trying to work towards the same goal, which is trying to make sure that you establish the evidence, preserve the evidence, and be able to present a cognizant and cogent theory at trial to secure a successful conviction. So yeah, while it can be difficult, Michael, I think, all of the prosecutors, all of the investigators in this case, probably trying to work on the same thing, which is to get justice for this 11-year-old boy.
Yeah, Gerald Griggs, you know, you have sort of the triumvirate here of new age evidence, as I call it. You have blood evidence where they're able to connect DNA to the boy in the house. You have GPS, which connects her to the boy. You have surveillance video connecting her to the boy as well. As a defense attorney, where do you begin? You have a story. She talked. She gave a story. I don't know how credible it is, but where do you begin as a defense attorney trying to defend her?
Well, anytime your client gives a story, that's kind of locked you into the defense. So you start to investigate that particular story and seeing if you can make it more likely than not, then that's what actually happens. And that builds in reasonable doubt in and of itself. So you start to investigate the identity of this alleged Hispanic gentleman who she says sexually assaulted her and killed the young man, and see if you can tie that up. Otherwise, you're going to be facing an uphill battle against all of the forensic evidence that points to something happening in that house, and now your client having put herself in the house. So you have to go with the story and make sure that story is viable and reasonable.
And Bremner, you talked about, we just talked about all the evidence that there is, that points to something happening in the house and her being involved. But I can tell you this, of all the years I've covered trials, there are no more hated defendants than women who break a trust when it involves children. Just look right now at right, Lori Vallow, right? She's the most hated person on the internet because she let something happen to those kids. And that's what Letitia Stauch is dealing with. So as a defense attorney, that's got to be the worst kind of defendant. And how do you deal with that?
But you're so right on, Michael. That's exactly right. There's a special place in hell for these women, according to most people. She is like the most hated person. Before that was Casey Anthony was the most hated person.
That's
you know,
right.
you've seen all these, women that end up being just the most hated because you just don't break that trust and kill a child. Your child, anyone's child. How do you deal with that? I guess you just need to deal with it head on with the jury and talk about, anybody that has these kinds of preconceived ideas. Make sure that you can get a jury that can put those kinds of, concerns aside. Casey Anthony's case, she walked, even despite those things. So I think that they never put her front and center. She did testify. Remember, she was not even really part of the case. That's part of it too. How much do you really involve this defendant, or do you simply stand up and try your case? Little of a case there is, at this point. And of course, as Gerald said, the case has to come from her in terms of a story. So at the end, it's simply a very difficult case.
That's right. And Michael, as both Ann and Gerald said, once a story's out there, it sort of locks you in as a defense attorney, right? So you have a woman, she tells this story, a Hispanic guy by the name of Edgardo. I don't know how she knows his name. Maybe he said it, and he sexually assaults her. He takes the kid. He's the one responsible for this crime. You have to craft a narrative around that now, right? You're sort of locked into that story. Do you put her on the stand? There were some competence issues in this case. They found her competent to stand trial at the end of the day. But do you put her on the stand to tell this story?
Well, Ann brought up Casey Anthony, whose story, as we know, changed 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 times. We just saw in the previous case we covered, Robert Durst's story has changed multiple times. So while you're locked into a sense of the story, certainly, I tell people all the time, I do not lie to jurors. My job is to broaden the perspective on what is accurate and what is true. And so sometimes you have to broaden that perspective and be able to one, either say, not going to put her on the stand, I'm going to hold them to their burden of proof and make them prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. Or if it is a cognizable story, something that is believable, credible, something that is supported by at least some inferences or circumstantial evidence, then you may actually have your defense built in.
Yeah, you could. But the first thing that came to my mind was, as you saw, there was some video of the kid getting in, or Gannon getting into the car of the stepmother. I would think if somebody came in and left, maybe there was some video somewhere in the neighborhood. Maybe a defense attorney can track that down. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, we will continue to track this case right here on Court TV. Right now, there is no trial date set for Letitia Stauch, but there is a preliminary hearing scheduled for tomorrow, September 8th, and we'll update you on what happens there.